Hey everyone! I've decided to record an unusual for my channel video. Today I want to tell you about my thoughts on the upcoming update 9.2.0, which points I consider positive and negative in general for the game and for me personally, and I also will try to predict how this will affect the game in the future. I want to say right away that this is my first time making a spoken video. My English is not perfect, but I'll try to express my thoughts as clearly and literally as possible. I want to start with less significant changes and gradually move on to the most important ones, in order to devote more time to them. Let's start with the killer changes. Finally, we got the long-awaited clown nerf. To be honest, I don't fully understand what the developers were guided when they improved the yellow bottles. The main problem was that the effect of yellow bottles was activated too quickly, as a result of which the players simply stopped using the purple ones, as the constant boost to speed from the yellows is just too strong. If for some reason you don't know how unbalanced the clown is at the moment, you can watch my video where I played with different speed builds. I'll leave the link in the description under the video. Also, the purple bottles have been slightly improved, and in general I think the clown will return to about its previous state. Next, the unknown. I must say right away that I'm very glad that the developers saw that the unknown requires significant changes, because nowadays the match as unknown is either a complete destruction of the survivors who do not know how to play against him, or the crushing victory of the survivors, who do not allow the killer to get any value of his UVX ability. Firstly, the weekend duration has been increased, which is incredibly important for this killer, as if you miss a UVX projectile, then in 99% of cases the survivor gets rid of the weakening and you need to make the survivors weakened again, and this turns into an endless cycle, which makes it a huge problem to catch the survivor. Thanks to this, it will be easier to play unknown. The movement speed after teleporting has also been increased, which is also not bad. And most importantly, the camera vertical range has been increased when using UVX, which allows you to shoot even higher and I hope to shoot under yourself, since this is a big problem for this killer. Grand changes, moving on. The next in the line is the Dark Lord. They reduced the recovery time of Hellfire and added another pillar which I consider insignificant, but also they reduced the movement speed when charging Hellfire and increased slowdown time after casting Hellfire. As I understand it, the developers are trying to make him easier for beginners. That's cool. But the full form has been nerfed, which will help make the killer's ability more or less equal in strength. There are no complaints here either. Next, the Ghoul. His kidnap tag was fixed. For those who doesn't know, this is the ability to slow down a survivor when the Ghoul injures him with Kagune Leap and vaults over the pallet or window. The developers wrote that this was not originally intended, which I'm glad, since the Ghoul is already a very strong killer and he doesn't need this tag. And the last small change affected Oni. He will be able to receive more blood when hooking a survivor, which is also not bad. Now only 2 orbs appear after the hook, this number will be increased. The next part of the update is very important to me, as it affects one of my most favorite killers, Michael Myers. Let's see what the developers have done. Now Michael will have 2 modes that can be toggled with a button press. This is a Stalker mode, 4.2 speed, undetectable, and the ability to stalk survivors. And Pursuer mode, 4.6 speed, 24 meter tail radius, increased wall speed, and bonuses to lunge range, break speed, and stun recovery. Once the stock meter is full, Evil Incarnate mode can be triggered at will, which will allow the killer to use the Slaughtering Strike ability. From the part of the gameplay video the developers showed us, Myers will be able to charge his attack like a pig does, make a dash and knock the survivor into the dying state. Also, this ability will allow you to break pallets. The stock points per survivor limit was also removed, and some add-ons were redesigned. As I understand it, now it will be impossible to instantly kill any survivor using a tombstone piece, but it can be done on any survivor who would die the next time they are hooked. As Myers main, I'm glad that the developers decided to do something with it, since Myers is not in the best position right now. But at first glance I don't really like the changes, namely the Slaughtering Strike ability, since it's very similar to the Pig's ability. I think it was possible to try to do something more interesting, but in general, I'll be glad if Myers gets stronger. And of course, a better understanding of his power will come when I play him. So we have dealt with the changes of individual killers, it's time to move on to the most significant ones. Let's start with slugging reduction. Now, if a survivor is left in the dying state for a total of 90 seconds during a match, they gain the ability to pick themselves up after fully recovering. The ability to crawl while recovering has also been added. For a long time there has been a problem with slugging. The developers have already tried to get rid of it by redesigning the knockout perk, which literally simplified slugging at times. They redid this perk, but the problem still remained. Do I consider the upcoming changes to be good? No. And here's why. Slugging is strong for certain killers, mostly for those who can move quickly around the map and constantly inflict damage, such as Blight, Nurse, Billy, Ghoul, and so on. That Vince is an exception, as their ability is designed to allow you to attack a survivor with Victor's help on the opposite side of the map, and sometimes it's just not profitable to spend 20 seconds trying to reach knocked survivor. To be honest, it's not profitable for the average killer to slug. The only exception is if the survivors play too aggressively. I don't see the point in hooking two survivors if the other two are injured, and I understand that I won't have any difficulty knocking them down, which will allow me to quickly finish the match and win. For example, survivors can try to finish the generator next to me or heal each other, and I think I have to be able to do this, as it is beneficial for me to benefit from the mistakes of my opponents. It's logical. In an effort to prevent players from slugging from the start of the match by playing as the strongest killers, the developers allow survivors to play much more aggressively against average and relatively weak killers, which I think is wrong and unhealthy for the game as a whole. If you want to solve a problem that is common in a certain pool of characters, then please solve it in a such way that the solution affects them and not everyone. This is wrong. I hope that the developers will realize their mistake after the update is released, and they will try to solve the slugging problem using other methods. And now it's time to move on to the most important part of the update, tunnel reduction. And to be honest, at first I was very scared of the changes, and I'll try to briefly outline the main points here. As a killer, you will no longer receive notifications that a survivor has been unhooked, and moreover, the unhooked survivor, except for haste and endurance, will receive the elusive effect, which removes the grunts of pain, scratch marks and pools of blood. And also, the game will not show the killer the auras of the survivor and will remove the killer instinct. Also, the killer gets bonuses if he hooks different survivors every time, such as the damage bonus for the next generator kick, it's like built-in pop, temporary haste status effect, and also the auras of the survivors that have less or equal hook stages to the hooked survivors will be revealed. And I also think the most important change is if a survivor dies before 6 total hook stages, all remaining survivors gain a repair speed bonus for the rest of the trial. And if the survivor that was last hooked is sacrificed or killed, generators can't be regressed or blocked. Ooh, there are so many things to talk about. So what do I think about all this? I really like the idea that killers get bonuses for not tunneling, and I think it's a very good concept that compensates the killer's need to tunnel. But I have some questions. Obviously, all these bonuses will be more useful again for killers who can move quickly around the map, such as Animatronic, Dredge, maybe Ghoul, Blight, Nurse, but they will not be very useful, for example, for Doctor, Huntress or Trapper, and other slow killers. And this also needs to be balanced properly. But the last part of the changes is something insane. Now, to move into the 3v1 state of the game, which is the most important part of the game that will decide whether the killer wins or not, you need to hook the survivors 6 times. And after that, you can play normally without dealing with critical penalties. And for many killers, it's impossible to do this, because after 6 hooks, the generators are usually already repaired, and the game is lost. And if you decided to tunnel and kill one of the survivors earlier, you won't be able to control the generators, and the survivors will repair faster. This is not normal. Again, these nerfs will be useful against the strongest killers, who can win the game without tunneling, but for some reason decided to tunnel. But this is unacceptable for the average, and I'm not even talking about the weakest killers, who can't afford to run after everyone. They need to kill one of the survivors as soon as possible, so that they could kill everyone, just because their abilities are weaker than the abilities of the strongest killers. Moreover, I'm sure that the survivors who were not hooked will abuse this system and hide, so that the killer is forced to chase the same survivor, which will give all the survivors a huge bonus. Therefore, I believe that the number of stages should be lowered to 5 or even 4, otherwise most killers will suffer greatly due to these changes. And finally, I want to talk about how I think the meta for the killers and survivors will change. As for the killers, most will have to take perks that will prevent survivors from repairing generators, such as Pain Res, Gift of Pain and Grim Embrace. They will be very useful because they give bonuses for hooking unique survivors. Corrupt will also remain one of the most important perks, as the killers will need to somehow slow down the actions of all 4 survivors at the start of the match. As for the survivors, the perks that designed for preventing tunneling will become useless, which will free up slots for perks that will increase the efficiency of repairing, healing and surviving during the chases. These are Deja Vu, Resilience, Prove Themselves, Windows of Opportunity, Sprint Burst, Lithe, Vigil, Finesse and others. In general, the update will be huge. While it's not clear exactly how much it will affect the overall state of the game, however, something very large is waiting for us. If you have any thoughts about this update, make sure to share them in the comments. If you like this type of videos, let me know with a like or a comment. I also want to remind you that I often stream on Twitch. If you want to watch my gameplay live or chat, you can come in. The link will be in the description under the video. Thank you all for watching, see you in the next videos.